Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. It is fucking time. Barcelona versus Real Madrid for the Copa del Rey final, in which both sides will be fighting their asses off to try and win their first official trophy of 2025. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, what do you mean first trophy of 2025? We already beat Real Madrid for the Supercopa final. But, like I said then, and I'll say it again, it was more of a bragging rights kind of trophy, a more sentimental trophy rather than an actual important trophy that we desperately wanted to win. You know, it was definitely a good experience for the players of, having that feelings of champions and having it over their biggest rival, right? It's a good experience to build up on to, continue doing well for the rest of the season. And that's exactly what's happened, because up into the Borussia Dortmund game, we were undefeated. We were doing very well. We're top of the league right now. We're in the semifinals of the Champions League, and obviously now in the Copa del Rey final. So it was definitely a good experience for the team. But this is a trophy that really matters. This is the trophy that Barcelona must win. And going into this final, there's two storylines for both sides. For Real Madrid, they're out of the Champions League. The league title is looking very difficult for them because it doesn't depend on them. It depends on Barcelona, because they have to wait for Barcelona to drop points. That's pretty much what they have to wait on. Like they have nothing else they can do to try and win this league. They can continue winning other games, but it won't matter unless Barcelona drop 4 points. Even if they beat us on May 11th, we're still going to be 1 point ahead, and we continue winning other games after that, we'll be champions. So this is the trophy that really matters for them, because it actually depends on them. They're going to go 100% to try and win it, not only for themselves, but for Carlo Ancelotti, who's definitely leaving at the end of the season. So we can expect Real Madrid to really show up for this final. And for Barcelona's end, they're fighting for the treble. They're fighting for the treble. That's the only thing I can say. They're fighting for the treble. So this is the first trophy for that potential treble run for this FC Barcelona side, who've been doing incredible under Hansi Flick. So we can 100% guaranteed expect a great matchup. So for this video, we're going to quickly talk about the lineups that I think both sides are going to go with, how I think the game will go throughout the whole 90 minutes, and who will be lifting the trophy after the end of the 90 minutes. Hopefully after 90 minutes. Hopefully we don't go into extra time, because Barcelona have to play a Champions League match and I don't want them to be tired, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, hopefully after 90 minutes. But let's quickly go over the lineups. The lineups, how I think both sides will go with. So for Barcelona, this is the lineup I think Barcelona will go up with for the Copa del Rey final. Szczesny in goal, Jules Koundé, Pau Cubarsí, Inigo Martinez, Gerard Martin, Frenkie de Jong, Dani Olmo, Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Ferran Torres, and Rafinha. That is what Barcelona are going to line up with for the Copa del Rey final. For Real Madrid, and Courtois en goal, Valverde, Raúl Asensio, Rudiger, Camavinga, Ceballos, Tchouaméni, Bellingham, Rodrigo, Kylian Mbappé, and Vinicius Jr. This is how I think Real Madrid will line up for this final. So pretty, interesting squads for both sides. And yeah, I'm going to quickly explain why I think both these sides will be going with these lineups right now. Federico Valverde, I think, is the obvious one. I think it's pretty much the obvious one, because we all know from the last two Clásicos, the biggest liability was Lucas Vázquez. I pray that he plays. Like, as a Barcelona fan, I would personally love to see him start in this game. I would personally love to see him play, but I don't think Ancelotti will make the same mistake 3 times in a row with playing Lucas Vázquez, because we all know in those last Clásicos, he was the biggest liability. We created so much danger from his side. He was just disgusting defending Barcelona, Rafinha, Lewa. He was just bad. So it's obvious that Federico Valverde must start as the right back if they want any chance of winning this game, considering also he is a freak of nature and will be a threat, considering we have Gerard Martin on the left side. So he will be a threat for sure, and I think it's going to be a real test for Rafinha, even though in the Supercopa final he cooked them at one point. But yeah, this will be a first test from a starting from minute 1 to minute 90 potentially. Raúl Asensio, Rudiger are their obvious choices. They have no other center backs. Alaba, they don't trust. Vallejo doesn't exist, and they have no one else really. So this is pretty obvious right here. Camavinga left back, I think another obvious one, just because Ferland Mendy I think is still injured, and Fran Garcia is another liability. So Ancelotti is not going to trust him at all. So Camavinga for sure will be starting this game, and trying to lock down Lamine Yamal, which I don't think is going to happen, because Lamine Yamal has cooked them before already countless times. I remember in last season when we played the Bernabeu, Camavinga was playing left back into Lamine Yamal, and Lamine Yamal got past him a couple times pretty easily. So I think Lamine will handle him for sure. The midfield, Bellingham is an obvious. their star player in the midfield, Tchouaméni, their defensive player, and Ceballos is the player that I think is going to start over Luka Modric, because I don't think Luka Modric has the legs to be starting this final against Barcelona, who are very dangerous. And Dani Ceballos brings them a lot of control, a lot of balance in the midfield. Before he got injured, he was a key player for Real Madrid. Once his injury happened, it was pretty evident that they needed Ceballos back into the squad, because he just brought a lot of control into the midfield, brought the tempo to the tempo that they really needed to attack and play well. So I think Dani Ceballos will be playing for this match. Considering he just came back from injury recently, hopefully he's not really back in form of how we've seen him in the past. Vinicius Jr., Mbappe, and Rodrigo, again, obvious. Like, this is Ancelotti's favorite, front three right here. And I'm expecting better performance from them, considering what they've done in the last two Clásicos, which was absolutely nothing. Kylian Mbappe obviously did better in the Super Copa final, where he scored that goal, and, he was very dangerous in some occasions. But after that, Barcelona completely just destroyed Real Madrid. Can't really blame Mbappe, but Vinicius Jr. disappeared in both Clásicos, did nothing, and Rodrigo, the same thing, the same situation. So, yeah, this is why I think they're going to go with this lineup. This is pretty much their strongest lineup after now that I can really think of, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, for sure. Be an interesting one, and this motherfucker, I just hope he doesn't step up for this game. I just really hope he doesn't. Now, going into Barcelona's lineup, Szczesny is the obvious choice. No other goalkeeper. Iñaki Peña, don't even get near. Jules Koundé, Paco Barci, Inigo Martinez, and Gerard Martin. So these three are pretty obvious right here, right? These three are obvious. These three have been the main guys for Hansi Flick this whole season. They understand the high line to perfection, and Hansi Flick trusts them 100%. Man, ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy that I think could either make or break Barcelona in this game. Mostly break. I think if we are to win or lose this match, it will depend on this guy right here. Obviously on the other players too, if we want to win. But if we lose this match, I think this guy will be the main reason. I've already expressed multiple times that I do not like Gerard Martin. I do not rate Gerard Martin. I see him as a major liability for Barcelona. And I think this game he will be, doing the same exact things he's been doing pretty much every time we've seen him play. Some moments he stepped up, but he stepped up as a substitute. Now we're starting in a Copa del Rey final against Real Madrid, against a dangerous attack force. I can't lie, I'm nervous. I'm nervous with this guy playing for sure. I'm very nervous with this guy playing, because not only will we have Rodrigo, maybe Mbappe drifting to the right side as well on his ass, but he will also have the likes of Federico Valverde driving the ball up and down this right-hand flank, and he is going to be getting cooked unless he gets the support from Pedri, Martinez, Rafinha, God. Something's going to need to happen for Gerard Martin, to not get cooked. Either Real Madrid again have an off game where Gerard Martin can handle it, or Gerard Martin just reincarnates into prime Roberto Carlos, Jordi Alba, and steps up massively for this game. I just pray. I pray something happens for Gerard Martin. Hopefully, like the La Masia blood inside him boils up. He gets hyped up for this game, and he's be like, no, you're not getting past me today. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there, but hopefully he does step up. Now, the midfield, pretty obvious as well. Our strongest midfield up to now since Dani Olmo was back from injury. Pedri, Frenkie de Jong, and Dani Olmo. These two, this is their first start in a Clásico. They didn't start the last two Clásicos. And the first one and the second one, he was injured. He was pretty much, getting back into the squad after getting back from injury. But when they both came on for both Clásicos, they were major impact players. They helped the Barcelona side a lot, even though we already pretty much cruise control when they came on, right? But Dani Olmo in the first Clásico, and he was a major impact. He really had us, stepping up a lot more going forward. And Frenkie de Jong, obviously in the first Clásico, got us more momentum after we took out Fermín López, and I'm pretty sure it was Casado. No, it was Fermín López. But yeah, they were two major impact subs in those Clásicos, and now they're going to get their first start. So I expect big things, especially from Dani Olmo. This is the reason we bought you, buddy. This is the reason we bought you, to step up for these big games, to play these big games. As a La Masia talent, you should be hyped up to play this game. So hopefully he does step up. Hopefully he gets us some goals, because as much as I think he should step up to, connect the midfield and the attack going forward, trying to get us goals, it's a lot more to do with him trying to help out Ferran as much as possible for this game, because we're going to talk about Ferran in a little bit. But Dani Olmo, I'm expecting big things. As much as Frenkie, because we all saw that Casado in the last two Clásicos has been the one starting for us. Obviously now he can't play because he's injured. So from what we saw from the last two Clásicos is that Casado was a sweeper. He was a defensive, defensive presence in the midfield for us. He was everywhere defensively, trying to get the ball every time we lost it, right? So we expect that from Frankie de Jong. He stepped up massively this, second half of the season in his defensive awareness. So hopefully he does the same thing for this game. And Pedri, we already know the magician Pedri is. Like he's always gonna have a great game, and I'm expecting no less for this Copa del Rey final. Now, when it comes to the attack, Rafinha, Yamal, same things. They've already scored countless goals on Real Madrid, have the confidence to go up against the Real Madrid side. Rafinha's going to go up against Valverde. Lamin's going to go up against Camavinga. I have confidence Lamin will cook Camavinga unless he gets double teamed between him, Vinny. Maybe we'll see Vinny, do something different today and come back and defend. You don't know. And, or Bellingham for sure. But Rafinha will go up against Valverde, which I think he'll have more of a difficult time. But at the same time, just that one little sprint, one little, getting behind can definitely get us something for this game, because we know that Rafinha is very clinical. Now, when it comes to Ferran Torres, this is the guy I'm worried about, because we all know that Lewandowski has been a major part in the last Clásicos. In the last Clásicos, he's been one of the most important players, scoring goals, getting assists. In the first Clásico, he scored 2 goals, 2 bangers as well. A goal from outside the box and a beautiful elite header from across from Balde, who we're going to miss for sure. And then in the second Clásico for the Super Copa final, he scored a penalty and he got an assist for Lamine Yamal's goal. So he's going to be a major miss for us. He's going to, I wish he was available for this game, but now we have Ferran Torres, Ferran Torres has obviously stepped up this second half of the season, but as a super sub, let's be honest, it hasn't really been as a starter, where last game against Mallorca, I didn't really, I wasn't really impressed by his performance. I think it was very, very underwhelming, considering, he's, getting some minutes to prepare for this final and for the amount of games he has to play now because Lewandowski's out. I wasn't impressed at all by his performance, so hopefully for this final he steps up. But if he doesn't, then we need these two to step up as much as the midfield too. This is why I said Dani Olmo has to be the guy to step into this middle area and create as much danger and create as much, opportunities for us, because I think Ferran will have it difficult against Raúl Asensio and Rudiger, because those two are very aggressive. They know how to control the striker. So I think Dani Olmo, this is the game he really needs to step up to get us a win and get us some goals, as much as Lamine and Rafinha too, which I have no doubts about. Now, going into the game in general, it's looking tough. It's looking tough for one reason, because of Barcelona's shaky defense in recent games. That's the main reason I'm looking at it as a tough game for Barcelona. We already destroyed them twice. We've dominated them twice, which is giving us a lot of confidence that we can do it again, considering Real Madrid still aren't looking the greatest when it comes to how they play football, right? So there's definitely liabilities in their game so that we can expose, but at the same time, Barcelona's defense again has not been perfect in recent games. So Ancelotti's definitely looking at that as like, we can expose this high line. We can definitely expose it this time, because we all saw in the first Clásico Mbappe countless times offside, didn't know what to do. And in the second Clásico, it was just more us being so much in control that they really couldn't do much. Like, they didn't do anything. And they were playing very defensive in that game. Like, they were very passive. They weren't aggressive. They weren't on the front foot as much as they should have. Their press was just non-existent. So it's going to be a different situation this game, because in this cup final, am I expecting a lot of goals? Not really. I think if we win, I think it's going to be like a 2-1 win. That's what I think is going to be the scoreline. A 2-1 win for Barcelona. I think it's going to be a very close matchup, because in a final, it's very rare that we see a high-scoring game, because both sides are going to be 100% going crazy on each other, and they're not going to want to allow any single opportunities, to go in, especially the goalkeepers, who are going to want to step it up another level too. So I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think it's going to be another sweeping from Barcelona. I think it will be a pretty close matchup, where I think Rafinha, I think for sure will score it, and I think the other goal scorer will be Dani Olmo. I think Dani Olmo will score it. And on their end, I'll give it to maybe Vinny. I'll give it to Vinny, because Vinny hasn't really done much, so I expect him to finally do something against us. But I think this is going to be a game in which both sides are going to be a pretty even matchup. I think Barcelona will have a little bit more control of the ball, and Real Madrid will just be waiting for those moments to hit us on the counterattack. Because at this point, they all know 100% that the weakest link in Barcelona right now is Gerard Martin's side. So they're going to try to expose that side as much as possible. And now this is why I'm saying that other players have to step up for Gerard Martin, like Frankie, Pedri, everyone has to, fill in to help out Gerard Martin in this game because they're gonna try and expose it a lot. Because Jules Koundé has already handled Vinny, has handled Mbappe. He's done it pretty well. Has done pretty well against them. So I'm not very worried about him. I'm more worried about Gerard Martin and how, he steps up for the high line, just stays in line with the other defenders because he's the major liability when we try to do it. So yeah, it's looking tough for sure on Gerard Martin's side, but this is when, he has to step up for sure. He needs to step up for this game, and I just hope he does. Hopefully, Hansi Flick just gives him a pep talk that just convinces him that he is one of the best left backs in the world, and he'll, potentially show it this game. Because not only is it because it's a final, but this is actually potentially for his future too. Because a lot of culés have criticized this guy so much this whole season because he doesn't have the level. He just doesn't have the level to be playing for Barcelona. So he has to try and prove us wrong. At some point, he has to try and prove us wrong. And what better way to do it against Real Madrid in a cup final? So hopefully he does something there. But when it comes to us exposing them, again, Real Madrid's defense this season has not been great. I'm expecting a 4-4-2 kind of defense that they did against Manchester City. I think the only game that really perfected the defense and looked just unpenetrable was against Manchester City, where they were defending in a 4-4-2, a little mid-block, and they gave zero options to Manchester City. That's what I'm expecting for this game. They're going to be very reserved, very passive again, but try to be a little bit more aggressive, especially going on the counterattack. They're going to try to be a lot more efficient on the counterattack. And, Mbappe is going to, learn from his past mistakes and not make any more offside runs like he did countless times in the first Clásico. Vinny, the same situation. He's going to try and, because like we've seen with Barcelona recently in their defense is that they leave a lot of wide areas open. So Vinny and Rodrigo are going to try to expose that as much as possible. I'm expecting. And yeah, so I think if any protagonist is going to come up for Real Madrid, it should be either Vinny or Rodrigo. I think these two will be the main guys for Real Madrid this game if they want to potentially win it. For us, it's going to be either Dani Olmo or Lamine Yamal. I think these two will be the main protagonists for Barcelona to win this game. As much as Rafinha too, because he's very clinical. If we give him the opportunity, he will score it. But I think the main difference makers for such a difficult matchup and for a cup final will be Lamine or Dani Olmo, who are, just tend to step up in these kind of games. Can show the potential that they have. They won a Euros. They have the experience of being champions for sure. But as much as Real Madrid players do, because they won the Champions League last season. So yeah, those four players are expecting to really have a game for this matchup. Overall, I just hope Barcelona win. I just hope we win. I just hope we get this title at the end of the day because we're going for the treble. We want to win this trophy for sure to, lift the first trophy for the treble run, which I think Barcelona 100% deserve for what they've been doing this season. And go with the utmost confidence against Inter Milan. We'll be playing them in the midweek on Tuesday. But yeah, so, man, it's tough. It's looking tough. But I'm excited. And for sure I will be streaming that match. I will be live reacting to the match so you guys can join me and either watch me suffer or be excited and happy and, celebrate a Copa del Rey that we haven't won since 2021, if I'm not mistaken, when, that was Messi's last trophy before he left Barcelona. So hopefully we do win it. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you thought about the video, what you think the lineups are going to be, and who do you have as the winner for this Copa del Rey final. Leave all those comments down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, favorite, hit the notification bell for every time we upload. Share to your friends that love football. And I'll see you for the Copa del Rey final. Motherfuckers. VISCA Barça. Vamos!